Hello and welcome back to The Dive, presented by Azael, MarkZ, and Kobe.
It is presented by us.
Yeah,
it's presented by our morning routines.
Yeah, our morning routines. This is season 6, episode 20. What's your morning routine, Azael?
Well, I wake up and I come to the dive.
Good routine.
How'd you get here?
I drove.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
What about you? Anything hype?
I mean, I take a cold shower. Does that count? An
Yeah,
extra little
How long
step?
have you been doing that for? Because I heard you talk about that a while ago.
Probably a while, yeah, like maybe like 6 months or something.
I'm impressed. I tried doing this for a while, and then I took one hot shower, and then it was like I was back off the wagon. You know, it just took one.
You're like, why was I
oh
doing
my
that?
God, this
That's
was
so
horrible.
stupid.
Why did I ever do this?
Kobe's turned the heater off so you can't get hot water.
Yeah.
You got to like go to the next
What's
level.
actually
Well, that's how it started for me. My hot water heater at an old place broke, and then I was like, "Oh, I heard there's all these positive benefits to it." And then I took one hot shower at the gym, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm trolling!
like-
This is amazing."
I feel some positive benefits right now. This warm water
Yeah.
really feels nice. I think I'm getting the positive benefits. What's funny, actually, now that I've been doing it so much, the water's not cold enough. I can't, like, I don't get the adrenaline anymore.
So
It's not enough of a rush.
I've
You
adapted.
plateaued effect.
You gotta
Yeah.
take an ice bath.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you need to start
Liquid
doing
nitrogen.
saunas.
I
Or
do
turkey
sauna
baths.
after the gym.
Oh, well, there you go.
Anyways, we got some banger news. It's all about ice baths. No, just kidding. It's TSM making some more changes. And I think this is really cool because last week we had a question from a fan that was like, how come teams always change so many players without changing the coaching staff? Well, here you go. TSM is changing the coaching staff. K's is dropped. And Coach Huni is getting, I guess, promoted instead of just positional coach for top lane. Now he's, taking the strategic coach position.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. We don't have a ton of context right now as we're recording this. So part of it will have to be speculation, but obviously things have not been great at TSM. There's been a ton of turnover of players, like you said. And I guess there's a feeling, I don't know if it's motivated by the players on the team or management above him, but yeah, feeling like Huni going to step in. He's obviously got a great brain for the game.
I would say, for my money, Huni would be the coach that I want. Huni is such a nice guy as well as good at explaining the game. So I feel like it's a really good, crossroads here. I think he actually has the tools to be a really good coach. So I don't think this is actually, a bad thing, even though it's like, oh my God, they're getting rid of, more staff, more personnel. I would be happy if Huni was my coach.
I mean, I think long term it could be a good thing, and I think I agree. Like Huni could be a great coach. I also think it's really important if you're going to be a player turned coach that you have some real history as like a successful player, and that you have like a little bit of time.
He's got some history.
So it's like, I think that's so important, right? Because when people are like in the league for a year or two, or maybe had like a really kind of like unimpressive career, and then they turn coach, I feel like when I talk to players, like, yeah, but like, what does this guy even know? Like he wasn't even good. And, it's like, well,
you got to have that respect.
Exactly.
That, yeah.
And Huni should for sure have that, right? He's an MSI champion. He was in World Finals. He won LCK. He won EU. Like, yeah, he was very dominant. In the early years, especially in NA, but has had a really impressive long career. So like, I do think that helps to build up that respect that you have to have, because players have got to trust you and listen to you. So I definitely do think he has that.
I was going to say, it comes at a good time, too, because you just changed 60% of your roster over in terms of your players. A lot of them are young academy guys who are going to learn a lot. It's like there's different kinds of coaches. You talk about like this one is going to teach them a lot, or this one's going to be managing personalities or whatnot. And with a bunch of young players, it's probably a lot more about teaching.
Yeah.
And a pro who has been so successful can do a lot of that, as well as the fact that Chowie's still there, I believe, as head coach.
Yep.
And so you are hopefully going to keep some of the systems from before, so you don't have to totally overhaul how your coaching staff works, but it's also before they're ingrained in those. So any changes that need to happen with how Huni wants to do things, it's not like these players are used to it anyways.
And I do really want to shout out the TSM, like the new guys that are on the TSM starting roster now. In addition to Spica, they all play some of the most Champions Queue games. Like they're putting in a lot of work. So they're going to have Huni, new coach. They're, like you said, they're malleable. They're willing to learn, and they're putting in a lot of work. So like those are the ingredients that you want to be able to build up, basically a new team.
Yep. And I think last week felt to me like when we saw those changes, you're changing 3/5 of your team and all these young players, it felt like, okay, TSM's kind of like over 2022. They're looking towards 2023. I feel like this feels that even more. You know, not that Huni can't be a good coach right now, but it's like when you're making this many changes mid-season, it is clearly like upper management or whatever, like Reggie comes down and says, all right, this isn't acceptable. Like we got to change some things up. We got to get some things moving in the right direction. So that's really what this whole kind of series of changes does feel like to me. I also wouldn't be shocked if there's more changes coming, right? When you've already been mixing up this much stuff. And as far as I know, I'm not actually 100% sure on this, but I was told that Spica's contract ends this year. So it's like maybe there's even going to be more changes coming, right? You know, you've got to, if you're TSM and you want to keep Spica, you've got to convince him that like, the ship is moving in the right direction, or Spica is probably going to be gone. So I think a lot of changes are coming for TSM, and it sucks. It's kind of like a mess for them right now. But at the same time, there was a lot of positive stuff to talk about from this last weekend, right? Like Soul has been hilarious. Like I saw him in the studio, and everyone has these little conversations now. It seems like a lot of casters have bumped into him and had a chat with him, and he just seems really charismatic and kind of funny, right? Like I was getting makeup, and he's like just like pops his head, and he's like, oh, Azael, like, you know, and it's just like that's the first time I ever met him, right? Like he's pretty outgoing and confident and fun, and you know, his interview after was amazing. I know he was on Hotline League.
Yeah, he killed it.
I loved how like after they won their game, he like runs straight to Huni and gives Huni a big hug, and he just looks so happy. Like I don't know, I love that guy, man. He's really fun to watch, and it's awesome for TSM to like. I think there was some of that sentiment of like TSM fans having some new people to kind of rally around, which is cool.
And he's very new. I want to emphasize that. It took 1 year straight from amateur, from, you know, starting basically playing professional league into all the way into the LCS. So like that is a super quick timeline for him to get in here. And yeah, you can see the excitement in his face. I mean, just smiling all the time, even in the very first game that they had.
Yeah, I mean, he's awesome. I don't love to shill Hotline League on here, but that was one where I'll shamelessly be like, go watch that episode. Just
I was on that one too. It was pretty good.
You'd be butted in like twice. You tried 2 different times. But yeah, like Soul is absolutely super fun to watch. And so like to the point about giving fans something to rally around, when you have a bunch of like veterans and you're like, are we trying to go to Worlds or not? And you like, it's a lot easier to just be like, this is a young guy and I just want to see him do well. It doesn't really matter the other outside factors as much when you get this kind of like hard reset. To your point, it does feel like TSM's looking towards the future.
Yeah.
The Spica thing, there was an interview by Inven Global, or excuse me, Dot Esports, where the headline was, I'm going to be a free agent next year. I just want to play as well as I can, show everyone I'm really effing good, and I'll see what happens from there. So like, to that point, there's obviously going to be a big battle to keep Spica and getting the ship in the right direction, having pieces that hopefully he's enjoying playing with, and being like, well, we'll have Soul next year or something. And
it's interesting to look at overall too, because we had at the beginning of this year, it was such a cool story. We had so many teams rebuilding in different ways and taking these different strategies. You know, we had Cloud9, Korean imports, TSM, LPL, LDL imports, and you know, like Evil Genius style, trying to build up the NA talent. And this feels like a shift where they're like, all right, the LDL talent didn't work out so much, so we're making a bit of a shift, you know, promoting some academy players and getting them all in there. Plus Takeover, it looks like he really wants a chance to, because from Champions Queue open to Champions Queue close, he's in there. So Maple, you talk about more possible changes. I would not be surprised even if he got some time too.
I mean, if you're saying, all right, 22 is like off the table, basically, we're looking for the future, then like I think it wouldn't be shocking to have like a rookie playing mid lane instead of Maple, right? Like Maple is shocker, not the future of the org, right? Like I think he was brought in to try to like have that immediate impact and try to get them to have a really successful season right now. Bring in like a really veteran player, tons of experience, blah blah. So I wouldn't be shocked if they brought in another player. It's kind of funny though, like when you think back to like how the TSM roster started, it's like, like they're the LDL, LPL team, right? And now they have four NA, right? Like maybe like one of the most NA rosters. Yeah. I don't actually know like if there's someone that has full 5 NA with 0.
CLG does.
CLG is full 5 NA. Okay, so they're at least one of the teams that have the most, right? And if they did swap Maple out, then they could be, like going from like one of the least to the most. So
Luger's import. I forgot. I know there's 5. There's got to be one 5 NA team. I I feel like there is, but maybe I'm
I don't know if there is.
No,
Luger came from Academy.
We
They
had in the past because
Yeah.
there was a while where Dignitas was, but that changed
maybe
as well.
not this year.
Yeah, I don't think there is a 5NA team unless we're just totally spacing out.
Yeah.
But like FlyQuest obviously has Decoy,
Jose
Dig
technically
has
also.
Blue,
Yeah,
and Jose.
there's not one this split.
Yeah. Anyways, I think there is a case to be made that keeping Maplein is also still good for
sure.
long term, even just to like have some stability. I think Maple's been pretty good this split.
Yeah.
The TSM problems don't seem to be mid jungle related,
Yeah.
and even in their win, while Instinct got the pentakill, and I'll want to talk more about him in a second, but like Maple was really good in the mid lane in that game, and I think just having stability so it's not 4 young Zoomers all like, I'm gonna make a play here, and like I think having a little bit of veteran,
That's one of the things from the EG formula where they're like, all right, yes, we've got JoJo and Danny, but we also have Impact, one of the most veteran players you could possibly have, early world championship winner as well, plus Inspired and Vulcan, both very prominent shot callers. So yes, it's that
For
mix
sure.
of both.
It's also a lot harder to evaluate if it's too off the rails. It's even
Yeah.
hard to tell like why you're necessarily losing if everything's kind of crazy. I always think back to when I was on playtest, we would have our like test point, like it's like you're trying some new crazy thing,
Yeah.
right? And then it's like you have to have the like controls, which is like the boring standard things that you know like what it's gonna look like. So like tank v tank top because you're trying some weirdo new assassin champion in the mid lane. And I think the same kind of applies to like pro play where it can be really hard to evaluate like why did you lose the game when if you have like 5 brand new rookie players and all the crazy stuff's going on. It's like hard to tell whose mistakes were the real problem. So I can definitely see from that perspective. But it'll be interesting to see like what TSM does in these coming weeks because they have been very reactive. Where it's like something goes wrong, they make a change, right? And that's why I think for those new players, it was important that they got a win, right? That they actually did come away with that big win on Sunday, because had they not, like, who knows? Or maybe we're having a different conversation of like, oh, like the players are swapping out again, and like Mia's in or so and so's in, right? So it'll be interesting to see like how it looks over these coming weeks, and if they start kind of like racking up a number of losses in a row. Do these players even stay or do they just change again?
I think just getting a taste of a win is important for many reasons, especially super early on. Just for the confidence to know you can do it against a good team too, FlyQuest.
Yeah.
So I think that was important for many reasons. Very good pickup there. Speaking of the LDL though, we got some more news, and as soon as Fearless mode was explained to me, I was like, hell yeah, let's incorporate that in the LCS, in lock-in tournament, whatever. It's so cool. LDL is using, this is the Academy basically league of the LPL, a new Fearless mode draft where you cannot use the same champion that you used in the previous game.
I think only for winners, right?
Is it only for winners? Okay, well, there are different iterations of Fearless and how extreme it gets.
Yeah.
Maybe it is only the winners for their iteration, but I think it's just so cool. Anything to force new and interesting and champion combinations. Like if we can just get more innovation with some extra little strategy like this, I think that is a great addition. So I know some people don't want to like incorporate it into the main league or whatever. I actually would be all for incorporating it straight into the LCS and having it actually affect your strategy of like, ooh, we're playing TSM the first day, but Team Liquid the second day. Which champion do I save to be able to use this weekend to be able to draft in the second game and not be able to repeat? I think it just opens a lot of doors and actually would have more fun team comps. Which is more enjoyable for viewers to watch,
So I've actually been pitching like greater changes to Pickman for like 2 years now, and trying to like wasn't exactly this some ideas, but like I feel pretty strongly that there's like a very large pool of champions that are just below the top tier that never ever get played. Because like X champion that is slightly above exists, right? It's like you never see like, I don't know, like Mundo or whatever, like because Ornn exists and things like this, right? Where it's like if you can trim out some of those top champions through like things like Fearless or other ways, I think it makes the champion diversity so much more interesting and the game so much more fun to watch. Like I've really been feeling like even the top champions like globally that are the top X presence in pro play should be rotated out, and you could do like a 2-week system like on a patch cadence where it's like anything that is like, say, 75, 80%, whatever it is, or above, gets rotated out of pro play for the following 2-week cadence. And then new champions come up. If anything becomes too dominant, that's rotated out. The previous champions get rotated back in and so on. Like things like that to actually push for more diversity in pro play, I think are incredibly interesting. So like I'm on the same page. Like I would love to see that. I've been trying to push for that, but like what I have been told is that if something like that were to happen for LCS, it basically has to be like almost like a global change. So that, because then it's like you're talking about like, oh, is it like good for us internationally and that type of stuff. So there's a lot that goes into it, but like I feel really strongly that there needs to be changes for pick ban and champion diversity in pro.
Yeah,
and I really want something to happen. So I'm hoping that like if LDL fearless mode is adopted and really enjoyed, that like I can use that as somewhat as like ammo to continue to like push for this.
So yeah, that's the problem with that response from people is that's a stonewall of saying that's never going to happen, because you actually cannot just change all the leagues at the same time. There's no way you're going to be able to get that agreement and that coordination. What you have to do is step by step so that you have precedence and you can use it just like legal arguments and be like, look, okay, LDL is doing it. Oh, what if, and then now LCS is doing it. A whole main league is doing it. And
early adopter.
It has to propagate. So someone has to be the first step. And I'm glad that the LDL is going to be the first step.
I think so. Like, to be the poo-pooer a little bit, I think there is legitimate reasons to not do it as well, both in terms of how you format the league afterwards, because we don't use best of threes currently. And you were saying, you could do it Saturday, Sunday, or whatnot.
Yeah, for a weekend.
Yeah. That also puts a lot of strain on teams in how you approach pick ban, not just in terms of your own prep for yourself, like, oh, we're playing the easier team, we should spend all of our good champions on the first one or something, but also keeping track of what the enemy has picked or not. And
yeah, it's more work that makes the league more enjoyable to watch. It makes the games more enjoyable to watch. So I already know Spawn, it was already like in my chat, like, no, I don't want to do it. It's too much work for the coaches or whatever.
Yeah, but it's not even about workload for me. I'm not talking about just workload, but also like quality of game will drop drastically, because you're going to get a ton of situations no one's comfortable on. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing for viewers. I'm not arguing it's a bad thing for viewers. Can be a bad thing for players. The question that I have for people, because some people are saying, well, if they're doing an LDL, let's do an academy, because academy also has a best of 2 system right now, right? Like it's actually very easy to slap onto that easier. My question is viewership the angle for academy, for example? Like, obviously for LCS, you care a lot about viewership, but for academy, it should be more about player growth. And if putting people in weird drafts that they're not going to play in the high stakes games because like a lot of your staple champions are just not available, you start getting into more uncomfortable situations. Like I know Soul was, I think a lot of the people who actually have to play in this environment would be like, this sounds really messy and not actually too helpful for me in my development.
Yeah.
And so like, I think there's more nuance to it beyond like fans are excited about it.
Yeah.
Because fans will be excited about it.
There is for sure, but to play devil's advocate, like if we're talking about...
Wait, we're bouncing back and forth. So are you devil's advocate for his
argument
or your own argument?
My own argument.
Okay.
So to kind of like give a little bit of a counterpoint, if we're literally just doing a Saturday, Sunday, that's 2 different champions you have to play. This would not, like, using that's the fearless system, I think would be such a minor change for LCS. Like, you would barely even notice, I think, if you put that in, because it's not a best of 3 where it's really accumulating a tremendous amount of champions over the course of a week. It would be, oh, Saturday I played Corki. I can't play Corki. I guess I'm playing Azir on Sunday. Like, I don't even think fearless mode would change much at all for LCS. Like, that would be such a minor thing.
I think it would. I don't think it changes, like, it changes your drafts a lot, I think, because
you don't have to ban those champions.
You don't have to ban those champions at all. And you also don't need to worry about certain matchups anymore. Because, like, if let's say they play Camille, I can now blind Gnar because that's the Camille counter if they don't play Aurelia or something, right? Like, it can have pretty serious knock-on effects on how you approach draft. Beyond just like, I'll play Corki Azir. Like, okay, but
I don't think it's that wacky. Like, if you get into the actual champions, like, you just look through like people's champion pools, I think literally there would have to be no change for fearless to be incorporated in that way.
No, but my point is, for development, if it's not a realistic scenario, people just do things like that in the draft that you can't actually do in a best of 5 or in my point is that it's not actually good for player development. You could make the case, and if it's in your academy systems, is that good?
Here's my response for that, is that enforcing, these are constraints that are going to force you to practice more champions, right? That to me actually does sound like it is helping your player develop.
I agree.
Instead of developing in this focus kind of tunnel vision, like, all right, I'm going to be the best, Camille only, right? You actually want wider champion pools. And if from the very beginning, if that's how we're pressuring and coaching and pushing players, then I think that is actually a more healthy base. To your point of it can lower the quality of a game, I do agree. Like, there are going to be more mistakes and more like, holes basically in a game because
your draft can't be as good.
You've got more variables. People are less focused, which means they're going to have to, have basically less mastery overall of an individual champion. But I think in the long run, that is actually what you want to get to, like a faker quality where he's got this roster of literally every single champion, at a good level.
And my counter argument to that would be, that's not a mutually exclusive thing. Like, you should be doing that anyways without the format being reflective of you not being able to just slam the same thing in a best of two. Good coaching should be encouraging this growth on a horizontal axis like you're talking about in terms of champion breadth anyways. And that it shouldn't be a force on stage, but if it helps, it helps. And that's my only thing is if it actually is going to help player development, sure. I also think it's for the point about putting it in lock-in, like, hell yeah. Who cares about login? It literally has no influence on anything.
I care about login.
I mean, I care about it because it's fun, but that's my point. Is like, if it's fun, we should do it absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it took me 15 seconds. The first person that explained to me what was happening, like, oh, have you heard of this LDL fearless mode? I was like, pooh, let's go. Fire it off. Implement it now. Like, this is what we want. The people were so excited when LS got signed to Cloud9 just because of different champion drafts. It's like, oh my God, different champion drafts, and just like creates this whole storm and everyone's gonna get super hype. I'm all for it.
Yeah. I definitely think even if we weren't to do fearless, like I do think there needs to be some changes to pick ban and pro. There's not enough bans. Like, there's not enough variety because there's so many freaking champions in the game now, and yet we still see like Gnar and Viego and like in champions like this in just like freaking 100% of games. So I think either there needs to be more bans to like push it down, which I think artificially inflates pick ban, or there needs to be another system where it's just like champions are pushed out, right? Like rotated out. And other games use that, like where they have like a rotating meta and stuff. And I think there's nothing wrong with that as well. And I do think when you talk about LPL, which pretty much everyone is going to agree is the best league in the world, right? One of the big things that a lot of people talk about is that LPL uses counter picks better than any other league, right? They actually play red side better than anyone else in the world, generally because they have deeper champion pools and they're willing to play more aggressive counter picks. And like, I do think in that way, like that can help with your league's development, even in LCS, right? If you can actually be pushed and you're like, you played Camille game 1 and now you don't have any answer for Gnar. It's like, well, really, like you should be able to play the Jace or the Aurelia or there's something else and actually like play that aggressively. Or look at Dokula, like his Fiora game was looking pretty good if he got some help up against Someday, I think it was that one, right? So like, I would love for our players to be kind of like pushed a little bit to be more kind of like aggressive and experimental with their champion pools, because I actually think there's so many good picks that are just ignored.
Yep. Speaking of new picks that hopefully won't get ignored, Nilah. Who's seen the Lorlo clip? Who thinks she's busted?
I haven't seen the Lorlo clip, and I also don't think she's busted. I think she's actually in a pretty good spot for new release champions. She got hotfix nerfed. Yeah. I think she's actually in a pretty good spot for a new release champion.
So like, I mean, I felt like as soon she came out and she was like immediately like 52 day 1, which just to me means this is like monster broken champion.
Yeah, she got hotfix nerfed down to 50 or 47.
Yeah. So maybe she's a bit more okay now. For sure, day 1 she was monster broken because you have no idea how to play this champion.
That's why they hotfix nerfed her.
I still feel like she is so OP. From what I've seen, yes, I think it's gonna be one of those champions that takes a while for people to kind of get used to.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can like be like casting all these spells and full attacking like during your W is just so wild to me. Yeah. And the fact that like people like Lorlo and whatnot were actually having success playing Nihil's solo lane when it's literally supposed to be hard forced into a dual lane with the passive and still having success. Like literally they tried to ham fist this thing, so there's no possible way you could play it anywhere except bot lane, and people were still doing well. in solo lanes with it. Like the W to me is just so crazy. Like you dash in, you ult everyone in, you're dodging every attack while you're just cleaving the whole team. Like
Yeah.
it is so nuts that like how strong the W is. Yeah, I just think it's one of those champions that I don't know if this got changed. Like you still dodge tower shots, right? As well with the W.
That must have gotten changed. There's no way they would let that stay in.
Every time they put that
they've
in, it
taken
goes
that
away.
out from everybody.
That's what it was on release.
There's no way.
It was going to be like that. I can't remember if it's actually
I'll try
still
to
in
no-
or if it got changed.
There's actually no chance. I'm giving that.
That was on release. It was like that.
Yeah. And then it got hotfix nerfed. I swear, there's like a 0.001% chance.
Maybe we can find the hotfix then.
She can dodge.
Because I thought
tower
the
shots.
same thing. I'm like, are you kidding me? We're doing the same thing that we had like Kali and like all these things that do it again.
I'm actually gonna be mad if it's like that.
Yeah.
I mean, at least in the mid-patch updates
So-
from a week ago, it's not mentioned about towers. I'd have to check the actual.
I will say, I tried to jungle her one time, and she's not a good jungler. So at least you may be able to flex
Thanks,
her to
Kobe.
solo lanes.
Mhm.
She's not
Same.
a good
Kobe's
jungle.
doing the testing for you at home, so you don't have to. Keep her out of the jungle, you idiots.
she's,
If Kobe can't make her work,
she's not great jungle.
You're not
I only tried one time. Maybe I need to try again. But
no, you're good. Don't do
it,
it.
it was,
Yeah, look at this. You can dodge tower shots with your W, and the tower doesn't even ramp up.
Can't wait for that to get removed.
if it's still like that on live, I think that's
I'm almost
insane.
100% certain that it is. And it lasts long enough that you can, if you time it, you can at least dodge 2, if not 3 tower shots if you do it right when it hits you. The 3 is close, but I know for sure you can at least dodge 2, and the tower doesn't ramp.
That
So-
seems crazy to me because they've taken so many
I
other
know,
things
but they
like
just
that
randomly
out.
put it back in, which
It's-
I couldn't believe because I'm maybe they changed it and I've just missed this, but I remember seeing something, and it's possible that it got changed and I missed it, but I remember seeing something where it was like a Nilah was doing a tower dives where the Nilah would just like start it off, or Nilah would start it off.
It says all non-turret basic attacks.
Yeah.
So it has been taken out.
You guys are like freaking out over some PBE
maybe this
stuff.
is PBE then.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah,
was
this
thinking
is
I'd be
PB
surprised
then.
if they did it. I didn't think it was in.
Yeah.
But okay, so anyways, Nilah as
I'm like, there's no fucking way.
she probably is still slightly overtuned because she should be a high skill champion.
Yeah.
And I would be interested in what you would classify the growth curve over time for high skill champions, because a lot of champions will start like mid 40s and then creep up above a 50% and
Above
then get
50.
slightly nerfed afterwards.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised if she is slightly overtuned, even at a 47% win rate with only like a week and a half on her or whatever it is. So she'll probably get hit one more time before she's at least in pro play. If I was a betting man, I'm a betting man, by the way. Anyone want to bet?
My sample size of like 4 games. I think she's actually okay. I think you guys are.
You're playing with scrubbers.
Everybody's used to freaking out about new champions. I don't blame them, but I think the hotfix nerf was good. And
She's up to about 49.
I'm not banning. If she's up to 49 now.
Yeah.
It's gonna keep going up.
Well, that's pretty quick. If she was 47 3 days ago or whatever.
I guess it depends what elo you were looking at.
When I looked, I look at Diamond Plus always.
Me too.
Okay. Yeah. It says in like Challenger and stuff, but Challenger win rates are a little bit weird because there's like.
All right, well,
they're
we
always
need
high.
more data on this champion,
Yeah.
but she cannot block turret shots. Okay,
Yeah.
You don't think she's getting nerfed again before she appears in pro?
nerfed again before she appears in pro. I will take that bet.
I love
would
bets.
say
I
she's
love
not
bets.
getting nerfed again before she appears in pro.
I bet she gets touched.
I feel like
nerfed.
it should be nerfed, but I think Kobe's
It'll be
right.
after.
just for semantics. Oh shit. Well,
I think Kobe's
for
right.
semantics, an adjustment.
I've never lost a bet to Mark.
let's-
I've like 4 or 5
That's not
bets in a
true.
row.
That-
It
that's-
is true.
I can't believe it.
You can't believe it?
I bet you've lost a bet to me.
I'll make a bet that I've never lost a bet.
You take some terrible bets, Mark.
I take some terrible bets. Let's change.
He doesn't want to.
No. I'm trying to adjust our actual bet
Okay.
because there's.
We already shook on that, bro.
No, I'm making the bet no matter what, but I'm saying like adjustments are sometimes, as we've seen, labeled curiously in patch notes.
Yeah.
If she gets touched, I should say, rather than
If she gets a patch note before pro.
if she gets a patch note. Not just straight like nerf,
that's
but if
fair.
they adjust
Yeah,
her and they make
that's fair.
something different.
Yeah, that is fair, but we already shook on the other one, so I don't. Why should I
Kobe's
change?
always the poorest sport. we're working out the terms of the deal, like, even though we've agreed in principle. And he's like, no.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things though where it's like I feel like they want to keep their new champions strong so that people play it.
Yeah,
and then
I don't even think that's the wrong philosophy.
I don't think it's wrong either.
Yeah.
You know what, Mark? I'll give you your terminology. I'll give you your terminology. Yeah,
and I do think that it's like it is important for a champion to come out probably a bit overpowered. Because if it comes out like weak or where it actually should be, and it's a high skill champion, then everyone just chain loses on the champion, and most people just give up on them instantly and like are like, screw this champion, this champion sucks, right?
Yeah.
So if a champion can come out OP and land at like 50% win rate, because usually that means it's pretty OP if it's high skill and people are just already winning half their games instantly, then like I think that's pretty successful. And then they just slowly chip away at it and nerf it as people are learning.
As it rises with skill, you take out a couple of things helping it.
Like I think that's actually the right way to do it. As much as people love to make fun of the like OP new champs, but I mean, if you release like a Yasuo style champion balanced, that thing is going to have like a 30% win rate. You're just going to, every game it's on your team, you're just going to automatically lose, right? Which is like, is not fun for anyone playing with it. So
No.
I do think it's like a pretty good approach. Of course, sometimes it goes too far, but like it's so hard to balance. And I do think this is a bit of a different discussion, but like I think the designers in the balance team actually do an incredible job. The game has stayed interesting for 10 years, right? Like the game is actually really good. And I always find it funny when sometimes I'll see on Twitter people complaining that like there wasn't an insta hotfix on something, and I'm like, man, you were so lucky you didn't ever main like another game. Because a lot of games, it's like, this thing's so broken. Like,
enjoy it for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I hope they fix it next year. Like, hope when the new expansion pack comes out, they remember to change this, right? And it's like, right, didn't hotfix this within 2 hours? What are they doing? Like,
well, you also get like all the PBE feedback that is just horribly wrong, and no one remembers nameless, faceless Reddit commenter being horribly wrong 99% of the time. But the one time they were right, that Riot was being dumb. They're gonna ride that thing till they're dead.
And the reality is, like, having been on playtest and whatnot, it's like even with like a huge amount of playtesting internally, you're like in the first like hour or two that these things are on live, you get like 1,000 times as many games played worldwide, right, as you can ever do in like a year of testing, because it's like much smaller teams. It's like 20 people or whatever that are testing this thing all the time. But you just can't get that many games in compared to what you see when it's on live. So I do think that it's like they do a pretty damn good job, and the champions come out like within reason. I think the vast majority of the time, and they're pretty good at adjusting. So I think they deserve a lot of credit.
I think they do deserve a shout out when they do hotfix literally within 4 hours or 5 hours or whatever, which they did on this last patch. Now, I mentioned they hotfix Nilah. It wasn't just that. They had to hotfix a lot of things, which is, you're like, oh, why did they have to do this in the first place? But you could also look at it as, oh, well, they did. Yi, Sivir, and there was one more as well that was like 55% win rate. Yeah, Gwen. Yep. So they hotfix all of those, plus Nilah really quickly. So you could look at it from either perspective and be like, well, yes, it's like that in this case, but look, they're adjusting it really quickly.
It's really easy to like get like balance changes right if you just do numbers, but when you change the way that things work, it's way harder.
Yeah. And we do have, speaking of a bunch of balance changes, this is pretty cool. Riot Froxon, Matt, who we had on the dive for our interview with the head of balance, he tweeted out a bunch of balance changes that are coming up as basically the next big pro-facing patch that is going to be the base for what Worlds will end up on. So he's like, okay, we're going to make a bunch of big changes, nerfing sustain, buffing dragon value and stuff to try and get people fighting again. And then we'll have smaller patches leading up to Worlds where they always do those adjustments and champion buffs and nerfs and stuff. But I thought these were actually pretty cool. They ended up taking out the change that they had for teleport, where they were going to increase the teleport time. Because that was going to have a big change on top lane. For now, that has actually been benched, and they're keeping in nerfing potions and nerfing a bunch of sustain from runes, biscuit delivery, bone plating, conditioning, guardian. They're actually buffing Scorch. So they're nerfing a lot of these defensive ones and buffing some offensive runes, all in effort to get people to try and get more kills in pro play, which is something that everybody's wanted. We've all wanted since the durability patch. The one I kind of want to start discussing with you guys is the changes for the elemental drakes, because they're just increasing the value of the buff that you get from the individual elemental drakes. What's your take on that? And is that going to make the map a little bit more balanced? Because everybody was favoring First Herald so much more than First Dragon. And does that actually even create more action for you? Or does that just create more Herald Dragon balanced trades?
I think it will create more action because, I mean, the dragons, at least like, I didn't even know that the TP got pulled. So like maybe there was newer ones that I missed. But I mean, 50% increase to what the individual ones did. And some of them—
And 100% to Cloud. So Cloud got turbo buffed. Yeah. Every other dragon gets 50% increase, and Cloud is going straight to the moon with 100% increase.
It also was the only one to get a soul buff as well.
For all of the for all the Cloud haters, maybe you become a Cloud enjoyer here pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, Cloud Soul sounds so insane for some champions. Now 15% bonus move speed and the 50% on cast. But the individual dragon buffs just sound so much stronger. So like, to me, I do think people are going to fight for this. I think that it's significant enough now that like you're actually just going to be, feeling the change in these lanes very, very heavily, right? Like, 9% armor MR, like 3% missing health per 5 seconds for Ocean. Like these things are at a point where it's like one of those early game will swing a top lane matchup, right? Like if you're playing a Jace early and like a tank gets an early Ocean or a Mountain Dragon or whatever, or like the first two are Mountain plus Ocean, all of a sudden your bully top laner is not going to be bullying anymore, I don't think. So I think that they're significant enough to hopefully create action. But I do know that like there was like Peter Dunn had a tweet chain about it. Some coaches had some tweet chains about how they think that like it will create maybe action, but not necessarily going to have like more strategic diversity because it'll kind of like force people into doing these things.
Yeah, that was my feeling on this as well, as like if I was going to dream up my ideal situation, just making the objectives stronger is probably not the best long-term solution, but I also think that's probably more of a preseason angle anyways. Yeah. And so as a temporary, we just got to get the action up, I think this will work. There is already a lot of early game bot lane focus. Lucian Nami, Callista Renata. Like there's a lot of aggressive bot lanes that want to control bottom. It's just that you usually then use that for tempo to get to a Rift Herald first. And now hopefully it means that like, well, we're going to do Dragon, and now you actually want to stop us versus swap or something. I mean, they also buffed Rift Herald as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But in theory, this should cause more conflict, because before it wasn't just the first dragon, it was the second and the third, and you're like, who cares about those? We'll fight the fourth, and hopefully this means like, no, you have to start contesting things a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I like generally all of these changes, including the nerfs to sustain and the increase in offensive
pain on that.
Offensive runes. It's funny because we actually had
where you love that, lots of easy kills.
That's either by.
I want those laners low all the time, easy pickings. But I want this
top lane.
You're like memeing, because you're jungler solo queue stuff, but that's what I want for pro play too. I want the pro players to be lower in lane so that the junglers in pro play aren't just like, all right, I'm full clear, facilitating people. They can also get those ganks off, get some action going. I did want to say it's pretty funny because our producer had a slide on this or that about the dragons before these were even announced. And the slide was, would you rather have the buff power increased, which turns out that's what they did, or would you rather add gold back to killing dragon? And I was like, adding gold back to killing dragon would really get people to want to fight over them again. There's nothing that players love more than just the sound immediate of more gold. Exactly. Like buff, you're like buff power. I kind of see it. I conceptualize. And my whole team is stronger some way, right? Yeah. But gold, you know what that means. Like that's tangible. I'm gonna get my item.
Yeah, it gets you what you want too. Because sometimes you get a dragon, it's like, it's not really what I want right now. You always want gold. There's no one who doesn't want gold.
All right, hit me with your rune take then.
So my only complaint is that like it's a little funny to be like, durability patch. People are dying too fast. All right, the game slowed down too much. What are we gonna do? Lower durability, increase pen.
So here's the thing. I hear what you're saying, but also there's a difference between lowering durability and lowering sustain.
Yeah.
And this is more targeted on sustain. I think durability is targeting 100 to 0. This is more targeting. It is.
Yes and no. It's doing both. I mean, conditioning, bone plating, and
conditioning is sustained. Bone plating, it's just the cooldown.
it's armor MR.
Yeah, conditioning is definitely
It's not sustained.
It's definitely 100%.
Sorry, I was thinking of second wind.
No, that's what I'm saying though. It's like all the sustained ones, great. F sustain, let's get people low so that they die. I do think it's a little funny that tanks are still not that relevant, and like a lot of the things a tank would take are getting hit as well.
Yeah, the resolve tree in general is just kind of getting slammed.
And that's what I don't love about it, is like we made all these changes to make things not die as fast, but then you nerf the things that those things would take, and then you buff lethality, which is like, you know, the thing that was killing people too quick. So like that's it's a little comical to me in that sense. I agree with the sustain, just
Here's my thing on that one. Like these are pretty minor changes to just the runes that are also just trying to affect your choices.
Yes.
So it's not like a generic nerf to durability. This is the value that people put on, because so many of these rune choices were no-brainers and people were stuck on. Like
slamming cookies.
Yeah, having resolve secondary just to get conditioning and bone plating was super high value, and a lot of cases, like if you're worried about it, super easy. The sudden impact one, as far as increasing lethality, that one to me actually doesn't matter very much at all, because people were split. Like the value of that, it was like taken half the time depending on which champion you are, because in the same rune tree, eyeball collector is there.
And
so if you're actually going to be red tree main, and you are going to take both of them, and you are going to take all of them, including a hunter rune, then yeah, it does affect you. But red tree main got more and more infrequent with the durability patch, because red tree is so much about burst, electrocute or hail of blades. So that one I actually didn't have a problem
The only
with.
other thing I'll say too is I'd rather be too aggressive with the change like this as the base moving forward into Worlds than too lenient. And so while I'm saying it's funny to me, I actually don't hate it, because I would rather have the game get bloodier again. But I just hope this isn't like a trend where like, oh, let's just keep nerfing those things again.
And I mean, it will like, this does just read like a tank nerf to me, right? Because tanks remain resolve and they're going to take most of these. But really, like the conditioning thing, I feel like almost you won't even feel, right? It's 1% total MR and armor, and it's one less flat armor and MR.
They're not substantial.
And that's the only actual, like, that one, and then 2 lethality and 1 magic pen. Those are the only actual like durability, like 100-0 style changes. There's longer cooldowns on bone plating, guardian and stuff. There's less regen, but like mostly it's just about like the person should be lower in lanes. There's more potential for kills, higher risk, which like I do think is good, because there's so much in pro of just people just trading waves. And I don't even know if this is going to push the needle that much on it. I think the dragon changes are more likely to actually accomplish that. I'm interested to see. I'm glad that they pulled back on the teleport change, because to me that sounded horrible. Like that just sounded like, okay, TP's awful. It's just a recipe to get slammed by ranged top laners and pray your jungler bails you out. But like they want to be bot side getting the dragon anyway. So like good luck if you're blind picking top. But I'm excited. I mean, I do think that the dragon health changes also can contribute to action, because there's way more time to respond. Because dragons also have like 50% more HP, so you can't just like one shot this thing on when they go for a quick reset. It's more likely that you have to have like some fight over it, or at least they have your opponent has the opportunity.
Winning a fight
exactly, right? Like, because if you just start this up right on their reset, like they might be able to be back in time. I don't know how fast you're gonna be able to kill it.
And with the health being increased and the damage being lowered of the dragons, so the damage was lowered, you actually have less of a cost of just going to start it up. So like it takes you longer to do. You're more incentivized. Oh, I can just start this up, check if they have no vision or something like that. Then like that to me just even sparks, because it kind of lures people in. Hey, start this objective. And then it's also like, hey, you've got more time to respond to this objective fight. Huh? Guys? Yeah, like go fight over it. Yeah. As far as getting hung up on the conditioning thing, remember that conditioning got buffed with the durability patch as well. So this is also kind of just like a correction. Again, it's about the choice between the runes. And since conditioning got comparatively slightly, more out of durability patch, a little bit of adjustment.
It's also really interesting. Like, I feel like the more I think about it, the biggest change out of any of this, though, is probably just the change to health potions, right? Because that is like
health potions and all that. Yeah.
Health potions is just like everyone has health potions pretty much every game, right? Unless you're going corrupting potion, which some people do, but like most champions
corrupting
do
potion
not.
got hit too. It's that point. So,
but it's like, if you're doing a longsword 3-pot start, and you need all 3 potions in lane, you have 100 and or no, excuse me,
You get
90
450.
less health,
Yeah,
right? 90 less health, basically. And then if you're going that plus biscuits, biscuits were, so the like 10% missing health and mana to 8%. So like that's a little bit less, but like, you're going to have, say, like 100, 150 less health, right? Like, in even just like bot lane. So I wonder if that makes, like, as much as like enchanters were maybe being like trying to be pushed out a little bit with some of the changes, because I know they were talking about like nerfing some enchanters so engage supports could come back in, like when we had Froxon and the designers on. I wonder if that does like make you want to play like bully enchanter lanes, or like even like a Xerath or something, right? Because like if people can't sustain through this, some of those really heavy poke lanes become much more powerful. Like, admittedly, everyone I think is thinking more about top lane because the second win and all that stuff, like resolve is more of a top lane thing generally. But I do think this could really affect 2v2s in bot lane. And like, I'd be happy to see that, where it's like, hey, you took a bad trade. Guess what? You don't actually have enough regen to just like pop a couple potions and go back to 100% HP. Like, you're going to have to actually play this lane in a different way now, either risk dying or take a base and take a bigger deficit.
Well, I mean, even to all the not enchanters take conditioning, second win, like these kinds of things that you're not going to be taking anymore. You still will be taking if you're taking that champion, but those champions are just going to be weaker because a lot of their main stuff is gone. If you're taking Braum, like you were always Guardian and a bunch of defensive stuff, not as strong now.
Yep.
So it is
the
pushing
longer
those
cooldown
things.
on Guardian matters a lot.
Yeah,
for
like
as well.
for him especially. I mean, Leona doesn't take Guardian, but she takes a lot of this other stuff. So
yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with all of these changes. Like, holistically, I see it as they're generally trying to have people be lower health in lane, and then they're adding value to both Rift-Herald and Dragons. So either buff power or gold to draw you away from your towers. So people should be lower health and further away from safety. Sounds like more kills.
Yep. Also, if you're a pro player or a head coach in LCS or whatever, and you guys want to talk about this sometime, hit us up.
Yeah.
You can come on the dive, have a chat. I know, again, Peter Dunn, had a tweet chain about it. I think some other people did as well, but it's escaping my mind right now. But talking about his opinions and how he thinks that, it's going to like limit strategic diversity and kind of like push people into playing one way, maybe towards like, hey, okay, if you have to fight this, you're at heavy early game, you're always 5v5ing, whatever, which, to be honest, I think probably helps EG more than anyone else, because they're, I think, our best skirmishing and 5v5 team. But yeah, no, I think it would be fun to like have a little bit of a roundtable discussion with like a pro player and a coach and so on. So if you guys are interested, hit us up.
Yeah, hit us up. Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube.
Knock on Kobe's door.
TikTok.
He lives with Krabby
Come
Caffeine.
in person. Send some carrier pigeons, some ravens.
Yep.
Speaking of EG, time to talk LCS.
Okay.
I
love Mark's transitions.
Yep.
We're transitioning now.
Transition commence.
Wipe and no. So I thought this weekend was really cool because there was a lot of upsets. We'll start with the not upset. EG continues to steamroll. We'll get it out of the way. They're dope.
Got some twists and turns in this, baby.
This weekend was cool because there were upsets. Now let's talk about the team that didn't have.
You want to start with an upset then?
No, we're on
criticizing
EG.
backseat driving. All right, it's like if you want to talk about something, we can talk about
Are
it.
we there yet?
You're like the person who's like, "There's the McDonald's. I love McDonald's," and you're like, "Well, do you want to stop?" And you're like, "No."
No, it's fine.
Like, what do you want?
I really just want to make fun of you as you're
I
doing
know.
it. That's all it is. There is no like actual direction other than
Where do you want to go on the road trip, Azael?
wherever you
You're
want
just
to
the person
take
who
us.
criticizes other people's plans without
Yeah.
presenting anything yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, hey, what do you want to do today? I don't know. How about this? Oh, that sounds terrible.
I could do anything. Really? You don't want to go to the No, I don't want to go to the beach. Like, okay, well, then I don't.
I'm just laughing in the back seat.
You're in the backseat with Dash's dog.
Yeah, I'm in the back seat with the dog laughing at these goons.
All right, EG are good.
Mm-hmm.
They're popping off. They finished the first round robin, dropping only a single game to CLG, which was a game that they were on Nexus that they lost.
And they took vacation, Mark.
And they took vacation.
They didn't even grind away
vacations.
like everybody else.
And they just played their toughest competition in theory in Team Liquid to round out their first round robin. And they slapped them around a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, their first game back after vacation was pretty slow, though. You could tell they were like, all right,
Getting the feel, yeah.
let's warm up here. We're scaling. And then boom, win the game. Of course, I continue to be impressed with this team. Both because if you remember back to spring, for the spring season, they were unimpressive. They were middle of the pack.
9-9, 0 wins against top 3.
Exactly. So it was not this like, oh, I could see it coming. Who's the prophet? It was like, this right here is the best team in the LCS back in spring. Nobody. They make this crazy run through playoffs, blasting all the top teams. And then they actually learn a lot at MSI. It really does feel like coming back, they retained a lot of...
meme.
Exactly. Not a meme at all, because even playoffs, when they were making that crazy run, their macro was not how they got these wins. They won these games through having to team fight out of like some poor situations a lot of the time. And you're like, everybody remembers, oh, he stole Baron and got a pentakill. Why did he have to do that? They were about to lose. They had just lost all this positioning. And nowadays you see them like, oh, they're the first ones making the push on bot, rotating it up to Herald, making the Herald play, then making the, shove on mid first so they can get the move. It's just like, wow, they really have improved in a lot of ways, both the individuals, for especially the younger guys, but also as a whole team. So super impressed.
Danny's Ezreal. Oh my God.
Little damage graph.
Oh, is that what you're looking up? Holding up for camera?
The big line is Danny. The small lines is everyone else.
That's a single team fight.
That's one team fight.
That was one. I remember that team fight. We were joking about...
By the Baron.
Yeah, by the Baron. We were joking about calling out Danny as a KDA player, but he also is a DPM player. So he lets his teammates die so he can carry. And just trying to mess around, because he absolutely dominated that game. And a lot of people on Ezreal get really high damage numbers, and it's not always impressive because they're just doinking with mystic shots over the whole game, and it's wow, they did 80% of their team's damage. But
some big doinks.
Yeah, they got a lot of big doinks in there, but that was actually insane team fighting by him to carry a couple of close fights.
I do want to give credit where credit is due, watching out for the junglers. Inspired did the red side 3 camp immediate gank on bottom so that they don't get blasted by Lucian Nami. Ezreal, Yuumi would, if you leave them alone, get turbo blasted by Lucian Nami, and Inspired goes down there, boom, first blood, ganks them, burns their summoner spells. Guess what? Lucian Nami can't walk up anymore. There's no flash on this Nami. All of a sudden, you're standing behind your AD carry, and you're like, oh no, I'm going to splash you, instead of moving up and aggressively posturing.
Give some credit to JoJo as well, absorbing that level 2 gank by Santorin.
Actually.
He died, but...
the jungler's here, guys. You ping the jungler, Santorin's mid.
Oh no, the Zillion killed me.
I mean, that to me was just 2 good games.
Yeah.
I mean, Danny in that one team fight was crazy, but Danny in general has just been such an amazing team fighter. He did... I think it was a bit over 7,000 damage in that, and then it was the rest of his team combined did 2K or something, right? He was actually so insane in that fight. And EG in general is just so good at team fighting and skirmishing that it feels like you kind of have to blow them out of the game earlier or in another way to be able to kind of beat them in that stage, unless they do just really make some big kind of uncharacteristic mistakes. But now that they've improved so much at their other aspects of the game, it's very, very difficult. They're a much more well-rounded team than they were last split. So it's been so fun to watch them play because they are playing at such a high level, and they are doing all these little things that are making such a big difference. You talk about Inspired's gank bot, and Hansama did not have a good game. His positioning, I think, was a bit sus at times. He was been kind of struggling. I will say, he was getting a lot of flack. I will say it's pretty hard, I think, playing the Lucian out in that situation, because Lucian is relatively short range. And I don't know if Lucian Nami was the right pick when you're going to be pairing it with the Zillion anyway, because Lucian is relatively short range. So it's even with the Zillion speed ups and the ult, he couldn't really get a lot of damage out in a lot of these fights. Some of it was just on him, the Baron one where he flashed over the wall, kind of blind into a Gnar, I think, and got stunned and just died. He had some real flops.
Yeah, I was gonna say there were other he didn't see the teleport coming in behind him either. There were a lot of things that were just
there were some bad
map
ones.
Awareness and not champion.
Totally. But I did think even just ignoring those, it would have been a pretty hard one to play out. But Hans has not been, I think, as good as people were hoping. The expectations were obviously incredibly high coming off of the last Worlds he had, where he was best player on his team. He was absolutely, slamming in Worlds and actually solo carrying some of these games and stuff. But I mean, he's been really good, and Core and him are a great lane, obviously. But I do think this kind of like drew some more attention to that, and he was getting a lot of flack, given that it was like, oh, Danny popping off on the Ezreal, you have this comp kind of like built around you, and you're not really doing that much, and you're mispositioning, and you're making mistakes.
Yeah, I thought it was actually a really cool kind of manipulation and draft from Evil Geniuses, because they see the Lucian Nami early, and so then on 3 they go the Lissandra, because Lissandra is very good versus short range carries and stuff like that, and they kind of like almost even baited Team Liquid into their like Bjergsen Zillion. So you're saying like, oh, Zillion not the best with Lucian as the main carry. Maybe if Team Liquid had gotten another carry either from top or jungle, then it would have made that comp have another out basically. But the way that they did it, where Team Liquid ended their draft,
Aatrox Volley
with Aatrox and Volley, you're like, ooh, the carry potential isn't super there, especially for later in the game. So you're like, they have to snowball now.
Unless Aatrox is way ahead.
And so you're in a position where you're now actually, you get that timer really put on you, it feels like, and you're the team with the Zillion, so it felt kind of awkward.
I think a lot of people were memeing the last pick Volley Bear being what they end up taking. And I think if I was going to put myself in their shoes, they were thinking, we want to see what bot lane they have to make sure our Lucian Nami can slam it, and then we can take the Volley Bear to actually turn the turret off and make these dives happen. But to your point, a good gank kind of stopped that win con a little bit. I think it is, whenever you 5th pick your jungler and it's just a standard jungler, you're always going to get memed a little bit. But I at least, I think, understand what they were thinking of, like, I don't know what they were afraid of necessarily, but you had also already seen the top counter pick, so it really didn't matter necessarily the order you're going to do that. Just to defend the last pick Volley Bear, because people were crapping on that a fair amount.
And I guess it's also like, for Santorin, what is the 5th pick that saves that draft?
That Kindred? Too, yeah.
Kindred? Do you think Kindred saves that draft? Yeah, I mean, like that would be strong, like stronger for carry, but also then you have 0 engage at all.
Yeah, but you have Kindred Ultimate with Zillion. So Kindred Zillion is still a crazy good combo for dealing with the like Lissandra all-in engage. Because you have Zillion Revive, you have Kindred Ultimate.
Coach Kobe, get him on stage.
So then even though you are short range, I'm not saying it's easy to play. But I think that would be a different look that could be better. Plus, you can play Kindred really aggressive in the early game also. Especially if you have Zillion speed ups, like you can go red buff level 2 invades on Kindred. There's actually a lot of options. That being said, Kindred was picked by Blabber.
And here's the other thing is that, like, that's why I said specifically for Santorin. Santorin has played 7 Kindred games in his entire career and has a 28% win rate on it, right? Like, he doesn't play it. That's kind of my point, is that it's like, if it was Blabber, like I would have said Olaf or like Kindred or something, you know what I mean? Like, there's more like those style of kind of like crazy aggressive champs. I feel like Santorin just doesn't play that stuff. And like that could be like, a criticism towards him, but then maybe they shouldn't pick it at that time. It's like all his most played are like not that style. Like even Graves, which like some people would say like, oh, like he could play Graves. He's played that a fair bit in his career. He's a 35% win rate in his career on Graves. Like he has not, paid his bills being the carry jungler. So like, I just don't know that really like suited them. So maybe then it should have been like ordered differently in the draft or something. But like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know that like Santorin as the player would have wanted on Kindred.
No, I mean, I think the draft made sense in the order that they pick things. They don't want the Zillion to get banned as their counter to Lissandra. They have a lot of things that they're trying to do. And I think if EG wasn't such a good team, there's a world where that bot lane slams, Volley Bear's diving it, everyone's like, hey, we're feeling great. What a great. No one talks about the draft. Looking at Team Liquid like holistically, they still finished the first round robin at 6-3. I think there's a very negative feeling after that loss and just like a little bit disappointed in their overall level. But they've only lost to EG in 100 Thieves, who is also, we probably talk about a little bit, trying to find their footing. And I obviously, EG is the best team in the league, but Team Liquid aren't, I think, like outside striking distance. If they improve these things, they're not like terrible, which I feel like is how some of the conversation around them has become.
Best of ones, baby. Everyone's always like, boo!
And I understand the expectation,
but they are terrible compared to where we thought they were going to be.
Compared to their expectations, sure. But I just want to make sure it's not lost that they're 6-3.
They're a good team.
They're a good team, and they should get better. There's no reason that this team should stay.
But they were supposed to be EG.
I don't disagree.
Right?
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that like they're 6-3. They're probably going to finish this at like 14-4 with another loss to EG or something.
I think they're going to lose only one game in the second.
13-6? 13, I can't do math. 13-5.
Okay.
They won't lose to TSM again.
Okay. So you think they'll only drop 2? Yeah. I mean, that'd be like that's like a good season, but again, not for this roster, right? Like, I just think that
Disappointed dad Azael. It's not good enough.
Dad.
Where's my A+?
if I buy,
If I'm paying for you to go to Harvard, you better get.
I mean, it's like if I buy a Ferrari and I'm losing drag races to a Honda, like, Honda.
Okay. Oh, you got to throw the sponsor into this, Azael? Come on. Did you mean to do that? That's kind of effed up, bro.
No, he's saying Honda's a great car, actually. He just said it
There you
beats
go.
Ferrari, especially when you got a good driver behind it.
All right. Watch yourself.
But the point is, it's like, you expect to get what you pay for, right? And TL is not getting what they paid for now. And it's like, you would have to be delusional to think that like Steve and the coaches and the whatever, that everyone is happy with how they're performing. So I do think that they really have to step up. Yes, they are a good team, but like, there's big expectations for this squad, and I do think that's something that like we've talked about a fair bit. But like, I think it's the reality. Like, they are supposed to not just be like competing with EG; they're supposed to be way better than EG, right? And I think EG has been clearly a step above everyone in the league. So they've got some serious catching up to do.
Yeah, I don't quite have the standards of you're supposed to be way better than EG. I've fully bought into the EG dream.
Me too, but I'm saying, do you not think that was what TL was selling when they were building this roster? That we are going to crush the LCS. I 100% believe that was the point of these players.
I didn't buy it
roster.
though, I guess.
Yeah,
they
did.
I mean,
right?
sure they did. To be fair though, like EG got the greatest North American top laner of all time. They have the LEC MVP jungler, Vulcan, who's
EG's supposed to be bad.
I know. I'm just saying, like, it's not. EG took a chance, but the things all worked out, and it's not a surprise that TL has competition. Even if TL worked out, them and EG would actually be going back and forth.
What do you want to see specifically from Team Wicklid? For me, I actually want to see them reincorporate Bwipo again as one of the main points for their comps. Like when he was pulling out crazy top lane picks, countering people, even when he was playing normal stuff like Gragas, and he would have a Gragas engage, super big part in the mid game. I think that plus probably, the expectations for bottom lane are super high still, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
I think.
Wasn't the Aatrox kind of Bwipo special though? I feel like this was him kind of like, even in this loss, was kind of him.
And he had a Gragas game, and he even said, he tweeted out, "Oh man, there was a chance. I was feeling pressured. I could have made my big Gragas engage play like I did previously in spring, and they just didn't. They didn't hit that angle. I kind of remember this one where he's like going behind Raptor Pit or whatever, trying to surprise people. But yeah, I guess there's that you want, like hitting at 100%, and then the bottom lane, which is Hansama Core JJ, is supposed to be premier.
Well, and honestly, like I just would rather see Core back on engages. Like, he is a good enchanter player, but I think TL do not look the same at all when Core JJ is not playing engage, right? And he's played 3 Nami games. Bard is like, it's an engage champ, but it's kind of.
He had a Renata game.
He had a Renata game. He had a Lulu game, right? So the only like kind of like hard engage champs he played one Alistar and one Rakan, and those just like aren't really the meta right now. But I do think that has hurt TL a lot. Like, Santorin is a smart player, like he has good pathing, he does good things, but Core JJ was always the go button, it felt like, in the fights, and finding all these picks. So without that, I do feel like that has been the biggest thing that has felt like it's lacking for me from TL, is they don't really have that same killer instinct without Core JJ playing the engage. And maybe some changes, like some nerfs to enchanters and stuff, will like help him be able to play that again. But I feel like that's missing big time. And Bwipo obviously not as dominant as he had been. Partially, I kind of feel bad because like all his champs got buffed for going into summer, and I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be the summer of Bwipo. And then they all got nerfed, right? Like Olaf Top got nerfed, Swain got nerfed, Moore got nerfed. Like all these things that I thought were gonna be his bread and butter got nerfed. So now he's kind of like on GP duty. But yeah, I mean, finding something that Bwipo feels really comfortable on and can excel on, getting Core JJ back on, hard engage, and Hansama, I think, kind of just needs to step up. Bjergsen, for me, is kind of like, I guess, playing how I kind of expected. I think Santorin's kind of playing how I expected. So maybe it's not fair that I have less expectations for them than some of the others, but I feel like they at least are kind of like around where I expected them to be. But I feel like, Bwipo is not where he was when he first came in the league, which is like a very high standard to set, because he was insane at the start of spring. And Core and Hans, are definitely not where I thought they would be.
Disappointed dad. 100 Thieves, for me, I was really happy about their second game draft. This is one of the other teams that should be contesting with EG. And they had gotten a little bit safe, I feel like, with scaling and kind of playing chill. And I really liked their second game draft where they just eject all of that, aside for like Zeri. But even she's like pretty scrappy and not like safe. You can't just play Zeri safe and sitting back. Like, I'm going to just chill here, guys. So the Nara, Silas, Poppy, Braum was exactly what I wanted to see out of them. And they played aggressively as well. And I was talking about this a little bit on the desk, but like, if a team has a bad habit, one of the best ways to break it is to like just overcorrect for it. So like if your team doesn't talk enough, over communicate, even if it's not perfect. And like 100 Thieves can pick Ornn, can pick Azir, can pick Jinx and scale and probably pick up a handful of wins. But if you want to be truly pushing yourself to reach your top form, pick some of these more aggressive, skill-intensive champions and then go scrap it out and get messier games, because they can play that way. And they actually do play that way well. Like Closer is very scrappy.
I think especially seeing Abbedagge on a melee champion there with the Silas getting in, getting hands
that was
dirty,
his best game
popping off.
In how long?
I was like, oh, hello, sir. Welcome back.
It's been a long time. I can't remember. Like, there's maybe a game I'm just like spacing out on, but this feels like the best game he's had since like spring last year. Like he was doing really well, and he was moving around the map a lot. His laning was good against Palafox. He was making things happen. And I really liked the team play from them in this game. Like that's one of the things that really stood out to me, which was kind of just like nice to see, because Doko was actually playing so well individually in the early levels.
Oh, that was so sad.
Like, and he was
Team
just
MIA.
getting camped, man. He was just getting camped, and the team was not there to help him out. Contracts was not there. Palafox couldn't match the roams because he was kind of getting pushed in by Abbedagge and stuff. But like Closer was there, right place, right time, every time. Abbedagge made some good roams, and Doko kind of got pushed down. And the rest of the CLG map didn't really have much going on, so it was like he was kind of their opportunity. I didn't love how CLG played around that, because I think if you go melee into range carry top lane, you have to play it aggressive to win the matchup. Therefore, your team needs to hover you.
Probably, yeah.
Because otherwise you're a free gank, right? The Poppy pick was really smart from Closer as well. And he just like played it super well. He was really, really good on it. His ults were great in the team fights. Like
controlling Rift Heralds. Poppy has been so annoying for teams getting Rift Herald too.
Oh yeah. And there's so many people that are playing dash champs in this meta, right? Like they had Vi, not meta, but like Vi, Fiora, and the Azir for the dash, as well as the Nautilus. So there was always going to be value that Closer could get with, what is it? Heroic Presence, Steadfast Presence, whatever the W is. But like Steadfast. But he played great, and Abbedagge was definitely the standout to me. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely a good weekend overall for the 100 Thieves, even with the
FlyQuest loss.
Even with the FlyQuest loss, because I felt like FlyQuest actually just played that really well.
Yeah. Do you want to talk FlyQuest real quick?
Sure.
I am so sad they lost to TSM. I'm not a TSM hater, but I am a FlyQuest like trying to gas them up. And they had beaten Cloud9. They beat 100 Thieves. I'm like, this team's definitely top 5, pushing into potentially top 4, top 3, challenging these other top teams, because they would have been at 6-3 through the first round robin. And then they lose that game. And they don't just lose it. Like TSM kind of scrapped them out.
To be fair, they are right now tied for 4th, which is top 5.
Yeah, but we're talking about power rankings, because C9 started at 03, right? So it's like...
Yeah, and I just wanted them to finish the first round robin strong on what felt like what should be a win for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think they're really good. I don't regret putting them in my top 5. I still think they're a top 5 team.
That game was terrible, though.
That game was terrible, and I thought for sure that they were going to be breaking into top 4 and being like, 100 Thieves start sweating, C9 be sweating, Team Liquid be sweating. And I'm not saying that's not true, but
100 Thieves should be sweating. They got beat by FlyQuest.
They should be sweating, but it just derails. Like, it's just hard to build. Like, I was ramping up that narrative, and it's just like flat tire, and you're like, damn it, right when I needed it.
Yeah. I was really disappointed in the TSM loss from FlyQuest, because it just felt to me like they walked into that game with no real plan. It was just like, TSM sucks. So we're going to pick some late game stuff, and then we're going to win. All right, go get them, team. And, they went in and they just like did nothing and then slowly lost, right? Like, and so it did feel like a big departure from a lot of what we've seen from them, which was like pretty proactive play and like, some smart drafts and stuff, and like quite a bit of aggression. They just went Corki Jinx with Sejuani top, and kind of just like felt like they were just waiting around. And then it's like when they didn't just win the team fights, then the game was over.
I'm actually
right?
glad that all these Corki teams are losing, and this is before Corki nerfs even come in.
Yeah.
They're on the next patch, but 100 Thieves lost with a Corki, FlyQuest lost with a Corki. Everybody's losing with this champion that has no mid prio early on. I'm just like, justice, move them more to back to these proactive mids, get in there. And we got to see Maple on his Swain. I was super happy to
I was gonna say
to get to see that.
The mandate too.
And he built the mandate from Champions Queue. I'm telling you, I'm still a believer. I know you hate it, but it's like this to me just felt so good from the TSM side. You got like Spica playing like MVP style.
Yep.
Zen.
Well, what do you think about the I can't even think of the stupid item name, the Kempung Chainsword Rush?
Oh, first, yeah. I mean, it's 125%
It's really efficient.
gold efficient now as far as the
never
stats.
seen it, and I went online to try to look and see if like anyone was doing this. There was like it was like 0.001% of games that someone built it first.
It started happening a bit in solo queue, and it's been in a few Champions queue games. I still like rushing my mythic.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite there,
Because it takes
but
a
I
long
can
time
for
to get
sure
a
see it, especially if the other team actually does have a lot of healing.
That was
team
what made
had
it
no
weird to me.
healing.
Yeah, was that there was something that immediately.
That's what I'm saying. If they actually have a lot of healing,
I can see
then
that
I
too.
can then I'll totally rush it because it's actually very stat efficient. A lot of attack damage, a lot of health, which are two of the stats that you want to rush on bruisers over everything else anyway.
Yep.
Because
I'm sold on it for sure. If it's like they got Soraka or they got Vladimir, they got whatever.
Yeah. If there's no healing, then I'm like, all right. Gore Drinker heal's still really good, man.
Against 3 melee.
Or
too.
even if you're
in that game,
or
I
even,
was like, oh my god, Gore Drink value though.
Yeah.
And he went tank mythic actually. So
Yeah, he went Frostfire for the slow. But yeah, I don't have a problem with it if there's some healing on the other side.
I do like
Even
the
a little
Imperial Mandate Swain though, because that was also the Golden Guardians game had it too. Swain, I love Swain mid. Every time I see it, I'm like, this shit looks crazy.
Yeah.
It looks so unfair.
The underrated part is giving the move speed to your allies that are proccing it.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, of course, like, you aren't really fully online until you also get the Rylai's.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, everybody's marked, everybody's
That's why I
slowed.
like Rylai's rush with it. I actually like Rylai's first item.
Rylai's first, then Mandate second.
Yeah, because if I'm gonna do that build, and I've tried it a number of times, I just feel like your one-on-one power is so butt at the start of the game. Right?
You gotta call for gank. It's your key to getting free ganks, though. You're like, look, I built a mandate.
I'm helping.
I built a mandate. You gotta
Come here.
come.
You got to use it.
Because I like Rylai's into it. That is my criticism of the build, is that like in the 1v1 you're just way weaker than Leandry's.
Yeah.
Situationally can be really strong. I don't think it's bad by any means. But like, yeah, that's my only criticism. But it was cool to see him bring that out. It worked really well. And yeah, Swain has been looking good. And I actually think there's a lot of room for people to improve on their Swain play as well, because I've seen some people be so annoying with Swain W. It's actually unreal. Like, I was watching.
I just think 12 health every time I get hit. Every time I see an ally get hit, I'm like, get out of that, you lazy asshole. He's gonna have more health now.
Yeah, but like, so I was watching this guy streaming, and he was doing like, so normally people do Q then W, but he did like a couple points. I think it was maybe 3 points in the W a little bit earlier in some like farm lane. And like, you have such crazy range that he was just chain interrupting the enemy bot lane's recalls. Mm-hmm. And he would just step down to the side brush and he'd interrupt their recalls over and over. And it was completely winning the 2v2. Like, every time they would try to step back for a tempo reset, like, he would just stop their recall. And it was like, then they'd have to base late, or they'd have to be stuck with no buy. Mm-hmm. And they base late and they lose a plate, or they lose 2 plates. And it was like, he was literally winning the game just by stopping recalls over and over. And I was like, this is so crazy. Like, we need to see more of that when people bust out the Swain, because I think people mostly just are saving it for themselves, and they do the E, and then you put down the W and then you do the delayed drag, so you get the 2
Let me
souls.
tell you, they do use it on junglers a lot. It's definitely, they harass junglers. I think that's really smart though, to get the extra range and actually hover to interrupt bottom side. That's some good Swain tech right there.
Yeah.
I think Swain is actually just going to gain importance on the next patch, with dragons and rift trailed fights being more important.
Corky nerf.
More 5-on-5s for Swain to be in the middle of. Actually, just think this champion is going to continue to stocks rise.
Stocks rising. Speaking of stocks rising.
Oh, here we go. This is another banger.
Cloud9 is in the sky. clouds are up there,
And
you have
they're
to
losing
rise
to Immortals.
to get to a cloud.
I was actually debating between going to Golden Guardians and them. So, but
hold on, let me shout out Instinct here first, real quick. It was so it was so cool because he had gotten absolutely torched and flamed online. Everyone's like, "What? TSM's bringing in their 9th place Academy AD carry," and the man gets a pentakill. I was like, let's go. And that interview, the double interview they gave afterwards, so good.
Yeah, that was like,
Soul.
everyone knows Soul's hilarious and awesome on camera. Instinct was like flaming. He was like, yeah, my top laner into this team fight, I had to carry him. He gets the penta. And I was watching his stream last night. He's actually pretty funny on stream too. Everyone should go check him out. And I don't want to say he was shackled in Academy potentially, but with the release that happened of what Glenn had said, if things were not good in the Academy environment, he definitely was not getting fairly judged for his own level of play. And it's nice to see him in a much more positive environment, doing well and actually getting a fair shot. And so I hope he's able to, I hope they still use him or whatever. I don't know what's going on with him in Tactical in the future. You know, we're all still up in the air on that, but him and Chime seem to work well. Chime played that game really well as well. Like the whole team actually played that FlyQuest game super well.
Yeah, Chime had really good flank angles. That was the Rakan game from him, right?
Pretty sure, yeah.
I think so. He had a really good game. But go C9.
Go C9.
C9.
Extendo arm.
Yeah.
Go gadget.
Unfortunately, the extendo arm is just coming out a little limp because they had another disappointing loss. It just comes up short. They've had a number, and I like
the slinky arm.
They had that really good bounce back initially where they were 4-1. Then that one loss looked pretty bad. Now it's another kind of poor loss, and they're still 3-2 since. Is it 3-2 or
all their wins?
4-2. So it's 4-2 since the bounce back, which is still a good record. But losing to Immortals, some of the games that they won were still struggles. Like they beat Dig, but that was a game where they very nearly lost. And so I don't think this team is quite fully online yet. And there was a bit of a jumping the gun of when I think they ripped off 3 in a row to start. And a lot of people were popping off. They're like, see, it was just the bot lane holding us back when we didn't have our starters. And it's like, no, your team does still really need to work on some things because that Immortals loss was surprising.
I mean, they have, to me, 2 role swaps and someone coming back from like semi-retire. Like Jensen was on full vacation, okay? I keep on defending him. I'm like, he just needs some more time to warm up. He needs some more time to warm up. I'm like, all right, he should be getting pretty warm now, right? Even in their win, their game versus TSM, Cloud9 were crushing, and then you'd be like, Jensen, what are you doing, bro? And then he'd go die and be like, it's fine. And they still win anyways. So it kind of gets brushed away.
Jensen has had.
I'm like, bro, come on, you know,
a number of questionable games.
Warm on up, buddy.
Like
Don't get back to us.
You can definitely give him some leeway for it for sure. But even in the initial games where they had the bot lane sub, they obviously weren't all on him, but like he didn't have his greatest games there. And he has had a number of games that were like a little bit troubling. So we'll see. I mean, they are still like ramping up, and to your point, 2 role swaps, a returning player, so it's more expected. But it does also feel like, all right, we're like through the first half of the split. Like you got to start getting there, you know, like how long do you give them, right? Like, are you kind of like giving them that leeway for an entire split?
I give them the playoffs, baby.
Yeah. I give them the whole.
You turn it on in playoffs.
The reason I brought up the whole like fans being like, see, it was just our ball isn't to like slam them, but to try and be like, give them time. Like if you say they're back now and then they start losing, then you're kind of saying, oh, this is our level, right? Like if you're like, see, we're fully back and we're losing to Immortals, then like, well, then that's bad.
Fudge is fully back, I think.
Well, Fudge has been good all split, I'd argue, too. Like, even in that 0-3 streak, he was pretty good. And they're clearly a good team. So that's why I'm saying, like, let them continue ramping. Don't prematurely be like, we're back! Because then what does that say if you drop games?
We suck!
Like, no, you don't. Just let them keep ramping. That's how I feel.
Fudge has been super confident, too, on stage. He was talking about, like, not really feeling threatened by the top laners and stuff, you know, in one of his post-game interviews.
Yeah, he's the JoJo of the top lane. JoJo's like, all these other mid laners suck, and Fudge is like, all these other top laners suck.
Yeah.
Fight each other again. Who's going who? JoJo goes top now to fight him this time. Yeah. He's going to chase him around.
Yeah.
When did they play
roll swap back?
Hold on, let's pitch
Make him roll swap back. Yeah, right? He just keeps chasing him. It's like,
yeah, I mean, he's been really good. Fudge has been very, very impressive. His Fiora games, it sucks that both the Fiora games were losses, but like his Fiora games are really good.
Last game of the regular season, C9, EG, well, it's not of the entire regular season, but their last game.
That's a hype game.
Their 18th game is against each other.
Yeah.
JoJo go top.
JoJo go
If
top.
you have first place lock, go top.
lane swap,
Yeah.
bring out the Lucian.
So let's talk about Immortals
Go.
while we're talking about Cloud9, because
Okay.
that's obviously the big game from the weekend of the matchup for these two. Because it was both, yeah, it was disappointing for Cloud9, and that was the one where Blabber did pick the Kindred. But it was also the big game for Immortals, where they finally got to break their loss streak. And these giant smiles, and PoE on Corki. He finally had some good packages. I was so proud. He had the timing down. He went in on the dragon fight.
Yeah, that was huge.
Completely busted them apart. Kenvi flashes in. They finish off the kills, and you're like, they're doing it.
I was really pleased with Immortals weekend. I mean, even
the CLG loss.
The CLG loss was like, all right, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but if you lose tomorrow,
You could tell they put in work.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like with the fact that they didn't just have an absolute flop of a game on Sunday.
Yeah.
If they had because they had basically 20 to 25 really good minutes against CLG.
Yeah.
And then it all fell off the rails. They completely trolled the late game. The early game, also, I think the 2v2 got kind of bopped early.
They lost early, but then they started slamming CLGs.
Yeah. And then they started doing really well. They had 20 or 25 minutes where they were really good. They were playing clean. They were playing coordinated. And then they had that one fight after I think they got paired where they just super into it. And then PoE tried to alt flash in and get hit a charm and missed it and died and gave a shutdown and it just went bad. And I was like, all right, still looked better. And then they win against C9 and you're like, okay, you actually made some real improvements here. Both games looked significantly better. It is a bit of hope for Immortals because they were looking pretty depressing.
Yeah, I was so relieved. I was actually so relieved. That is just what I wanted from Immortals, is to come in off the extra week of practice. And PoE talked about it was the perfect thing that they needed, exactly what they needed.
Yep.
Have another week of practice. There's still work to do, of course, but so many improvements. And he was like, we're going straight back to fundamentals. There was so much wrong with our early game.
That's the big thing. Is there were multiple games where it was the websites, days since Immortals got last perfect game. It only happened once, but there were a number of games where
They
they
almost got perfect game 3 times.
Yeah, there's one objective away that they traded for, So they were dire. And I think losses like the CLG one are good. That is a massive improvement. And I think even if they lose those, it's more fun to watch, more fun to cast, more fun to talk about. And Lost, I thought, had a really good weekend as someone who has been trashed by the community a lot recently. Even though they lost that CLG game and he got killed early, like you said, they actually bounced back in that. And then he played some team fights really aggressively late that were critical in the game not ending when it could have.
I will give him some credit. He has not been a KDA player this split.
Not at all.
Right? And people were kind of memeing the fact that I was like, this is one of the best games I've seen from him in a game that they lost.
Yeah.
But it was I remember that. I think it was a Zaya game, but he made 2 1v1 outplays.
For solo kills.
For solo kills, flashing in on people, on enemy soul laners and stuff. And I was just like, I just have never seen Lost do this. Lost is always the guy that to me is max ranging every single team fight, only attacking the lowest threat person and saving the sums for next game. And
he's not that guy.
He's not. And so I will give him a lot of credit. And I also will say, I think so there's a lot of roles that it's obviously for everyone, it's just harder to look good on a bad team. But I think marksman might be the role that is the hardest to look good on a bad team.
I would say them or jungler, yeah.
Yeah, because you're the cleanup guy, and when your team loses every fight, you don't clean anything up, right? That's the highlight play. It's Instinct played that fight well to get a pentakill, but also your team starts winning, marksmen do the highest DPS, they just get last hits and they have those fights, and you're like, damn, this guy's good, right? And Lost isn't having that on Immortals because the team has been bad. But I think he's actually showing some serious improvements, and I do think it's hard to have that kind of mindset shift and play with confidence and play more aggressive, especially when you're on a bad team and it's not really working out. But I'm happy that he's getting some dubs and that he's playing more aggressive, he's playing more confident. I think that speaks a lot to his improvement, and hopefully Immortals can kind of keep this up, because they have been rough to watch this split, because even team play stuff is one thing, but also PoE has just been bad. It was weird to see where it was PoE has been so stable for so long. Even when you put him on terrible teams, it was you're on Optic. That's too bad. But you're still going to win some games.
Yeah, sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch, but sorry that happened to you, or good for you.
So it's nice to see them have some good performances, because they've been struggling hard.
All right. Are you going to go more on them?
No, I was going to transition to
Yeah,
CLG.
I was all right, it's time for CLG, baby. As I said, they're still tied for 4th/5th place, okay? So the Doom Seers for CLG need to remember that this is a team coming from back to back to back 10th place in Academy, 10th place in LCS. There's 10th places all over. Bud Light acing, things were a disaster, okay?
They're fishtailing right now,
So
though.
even though they're fishtailing, you're still fishtailing up in 5th in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, but they feel
They're
like
going, woo!
I don't totally doubt them yet, but this last weekend, because they could have gone 0-2 very easily.
Yeah.
I saw this Immortals game.
Yeah.
They are, you're trying to get the car back under control.
Yeah,
it's about to flip.
This
But
is-
the
this
Bud
is
Light
where,
ace was the car was upside down in the ditch
Yeah.
on fire.
They got the jaws of life out. They got
Exactly.
him out. They put him in a new car. It
Yeah.
was going good for
I'll give you this, Mark. Okay, people were starting to reach up and they're like, give me that top 4 spot. Okay, slap that hand back down. It's okay.
Mhm.
We're fine
realistic
being,
expectations.
we're fine. Exactly. We're fine being in the middle. So even though we've seen some of the mistakes are actually similar to what we saw with the previous roster of CLG, where they did start to lose their coordination and what they're trying to do for next steps immediately in the game. And those are the situations where you see them going for 2 things at once. They're warding Dragon while trying to trail split push top or something like this, right? And then there'll be the ones where like, oh, they're over chasing a little bit tunnel vision through the enemy jungle or something. You're like, okay, so there are some elements of that, but I think still overall, this team is definitely huge upgrade.
Yeah.
Is still much better, and huge credit even in their loss. You guys are already talking about
Big
Dokla. This man to me has been the single biggest individual player change of any team that we had this year, bar none.
He's the most improved award.
He's
For his team. He's got his team
exactly. He's the
most improved.
component they added, and it most improved the team. I think it's really been kind of a holistic change. It's not just individual play, but their team play has definitely been better too. They've settled on the strategy where Palafox is roaming a lot, especially towards bottom side. Maybe they balance some, roam him up towards Dokla, because Dokla's definitely been paying them back for whatever attention he gets. Maybe now it'll be a more balanced strategy.
Yeah, I think the trying to do too much or like not being coordinated is the big problem, because I love their draft versus Immortals, and then they just like never Yasuo comboed correctly. It felt like until like 30 minutes in, that's why they won the game, is they started actually executing their comp. Whereas in day 2, I feel like sometimes their drafts are just like whiffs. They're trying to do cool stuff usually, and the Vi last pick into what you had seen just was so doomed, and it didn't even like Azir Jinx like ranged. And you have a Vi, like who's going to go in with you? I guess the Fiora, which they picked with it, but that's not what your backline wants to do.
Towards top.
And then they didn't play towards top with it. So maybe there's an angle this draft makes more sense, but whenever you have double far away DPSers as your backline, and you have a jungler who can only go flying in and can end up way ahead of your team, that's not a good combo.
So to me, and I know where that came. I know where the pick came from, though. Right now, everybody, as soon as they see Zeri, they
Point
panic. And everyone's like, holy shit, how are we going to kill this champion? I don't blame them for that. Like, Zeri has had like 5 billion changes and is still extremely strong.
But
so I'm just saying, I see where it comes from. And they drafted like 2 Zeri counters. They're like, you know what? Nautilus and Vi. Slam that Zeri, okay? All right, our Zeri problem, that should be fixed, right? Did not fix.
into Poppy,
But
into
that's where it came
Silas. You gave Silas an high AP scaling. It's AD, but it switches to AP, Point and click lockdown CC for your immobile backline. It's like you self-countered your own team comp. It was I didn't like it.
I thought the only way it was going to work was, I just think, okay, if you play only towards top, if Fiora's winning the 1v1, anytime this guy goes mini-gnar, you just vialt him and you just dive him, right? Yeah. And you just probably blow open side lanes and you play for picks and play to play open side. But as soon as that started going bad, where 100 Thieves just played way better on top, I just thought that game was so over because Dokka was the only one doing anything.
Yeah, I think the key is 100 Thieves counter it with these underrated champions that are never like stars of a team, but are so good for team fighting. These bouncers at the front, the Braum, the Poppy.
Yeah.
These champions get no awards. Nobody's like, oh hell yeah, let me see some Braum. Some people say, let me see some Poppy. Poppy's starting to get
Let me see some Braum.
some more
man.
popular, but that is so much counter engage for your team fight with Braum and Poppy. That's so much protection.
Yeah, Vi ulting into
And
a
5v5.
Braum Poppy team is
That was-
just
so-
depression.
You're just like, oh
Poppy-
shit, I'm inside the fortress now. What do we do?
The Poppy was picked. The Braum was last pick, which is actually a good use of support, 5th pick.
Yeah.
And he played it well. But Braum is the most played champion all time in competitive. Unless that's
team fight. His team fight is so insane.
Team fight comp, Mark.
It's don't go down there. Last team we talk about, Golden Guardians. They're sneaking in. We're talking about these teams, you know, like FlyQuest. Yeah, you're still top 5. CLG, you're still top 5. Sneaking up the rankings, just under a 500 win rate through the first round robin.
They
Golden
do.
Guardians.
They're playing the team fight. Like the Seraphine, they actually got Seraphine. That's for one. That's nice. But 6A plays it, carry. And then they also have Ole with the Sejuani support, the Freljordian supports, okay? And of course the Swain from a Blaze Olive, which we think is going to just continue to gain power because there's so many team fights. But nicely executed by them, I think. And finally, I had someone pick the Aurelia into Gnar. Every time I see this Gnar blind pick, I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Okay, what they could do is if they want kill pressure counter, pick the Aurelia. And I'm like 0 out of 12 times attempting
You weren't casting that
to
game.
talk
I'm
about
sorry.
it. And then I wasn't casting this one.
If you're in the studio next time, because I was casting, just run up and talk about how excited you are. I don't care. Grab the mic.
But yeah, when we got our Trinity Force, Blade of the Ruin King, Aurelia, so I was happy.
Yeah, I think there was still some, like, a little bit of sketchy in that game with, like, Licorice was not super clean on the Aurelia, but I appreciate when people take the counter, even if you're not super clean. Like, in theory, you should be winning it. So you can play slightly suboptimal and still be more effective than them. And overall, just like, it was basically a 4 melee comp. I know Swain's not melee, but it's basically melee with the Aurelia.
His whole
Wukong as
AoE
well.
around him is his attack.
He just floats at you, you know, and he's like, got the Rylai's slow, just
It feels nice playing with a bunch of melees when you're Seraphine too,
Yeah.
because there's so many easy
You
angles
can
to
bounce
extend the
your
ulti.
ult off. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like you always get a good ult when
Bounce
you just
them
have,
off your friends' heads.
Exactly. It just keeps extending. It's so free to get deep backline ultis. It's like you shoot through the Swain, through a melee, and then that goes all the way through. You know, you get so many people. Plus, like, you just get crazy value. Like, melee champions naturally group up. So your W, like, you'll get so much value from that. So I think it was a really cool comp, and yeah, I mean it's nice to see them kind of like experimenting. I did feel kind of bad because I think it was the game before the Golden Guardians lost to Santorin, to TL, but like Santorin really, because he 1v9 that game, and Santorin's interview prior to the game where like it wasn't mean spirited, but it was like the most flamey interview I've ever
He
seen.
just flamed Pride Stalker. Like, he's
everything
easy to
from
read.
him, you mean?
What?
Or not in general, right? Just
No,
him?
from Santorin, because Santorin is such a
exactly.
nice, friendly guy, and he was just, I think it was almost verbatim, like, he's so predictable that like I would know where he is if I was playing blindfolded. Like basically that, right? You know, it's like, oh, all he does is farm. Like he's good at doing those camps, but like I can track him blindfolded. This guy's so predictable. And then he slapped him in the game, and I was like, oh, that feels bad. He just like he made fun of you. He said you suck, and then he showed that you know, like
It was just so funny to me too because that's such jungler trash talk. It is so insulting to be like, I just know where this guy is. No other lane is like, yeah, I know where this guy is. Yeah, of course, dummy. He's in your
he's
lane.
in front of you.
But it's just such a big flame for jungle because he's like, you're just so predictable. Oh my God. It was actually so good.
And then he had him downloaded in the game. He was there
Yeah.
like every single time. Pride Soccer was there. Santorin was there first. He had like the 3 camp gank where he skipped his red buff. He just did top quadrant and then ganked from the other side when Pride Soccer, I think, warded the red so he could cover him from that. So, like he just had him downloaded, right? And I was like, oh, that hurts, right?
Backed up the trash talk. Trash talked before the match and then backed it up.
Yeah.
That's why it hurts so much. That's why
hurts.
you're like, oh God,
Oh.
because he did it correctly.
Yeah.
Pre-match trash talk into backing it up, and you're just like, woo!
So I do think that's one of the things though, where it's like Golden Guardians has to kind of, you know, like develop a bit, right? Because they're clearly a step below these top teams.
Yeah, and I think that this standings are overall in a bit of flux right now. Where like, is CLG coming down? Where is Cloud9 exactly?
Probably up.
Immortals doing a little bit better. TSM doing a little bit better. Dig feels like they're struggling. You know, like it does feel like, okay, yeah, EG's the best, but there's a struggle between 2 to 4, and then there's a struggle between like 5 to 8. You know, it does feel like anything could still kind of happen except EG becoming a bum. That's probably the only thing that I would like bet my life not happening.
That's true. They could take a whole week vacation and they'd still be fine.
The vacation
We've seen them
before the
they
split,
proved
the
it.
vacation during the split.
Gonna be vacationing in playoffs.
Yeah.
They're gonna come in with pool party skins on. Everybody's chilling.
Yeah,
They got
all
whole-
sunburned.
You hear EG has COVID. They have to play remote. Yeah, they're just on the beach in
They-
Hawaii.
pina coladas.
Yeah, pina coladas. Like, that does not look like the facility, boys.
No, it's just the Skype background.
Yeah.
You know, we're definitely in the facility.
They're just playing into the pool party skin theme of the week.
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of The Dive. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a long one. That'll wrap it up for us for now. Remember, follow us on YouTube. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes of The Dive. They organized all the playlist stuff, too, so you can actually scroll down and see like all the Dive playlists with all the episodes. So that's cool that that's done now. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.fm. Keep sending your questions. We didn't do any questions this week. Our bad. We'll do some questions next week. Send them
Probably
in
not, suckers.
on
We had a 90+ minute episode without any questions. Just
That's
saying.
true. It was a meaty one.
Also, go check out this or that while you're there.
There you go. That's on there too. The playlist is also there. But Anchor.fm for the audio takes. It doesn't just have to be a question. If you got a hot take, we'll react to it. YouTube comments, Twitter questions, hashtag the dive LOL. LCS is back this Saturday. EG versus CLG, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. I'll be waiting for you to tune in, so you better.